earn more money but too busy to start a side hustle? Do it the right way and teach your money to make more money for yourself, even when you're asleep. Dale Corpus will show you just how here on the School of Cash Flow. With his entrepreneurial mindset and extensive experience in real estate and finance, Dale will help you become a responsible, strategic, and passionate passive real estate investor. Learn how you can increase your earnings or find more ways to make money, only here on the School of Cash Flow.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the School of Cash Flow podcast. I'm the host, Dale Corpus. So a lot of people want to get into real estate investing, but they're scared or they're fearful of failure. They might have thoughts of like, what if it doesn't work out? Or, I don't want to be embarrassed, or how do I find deals? How do I do this and that? Or what do I do next? Or what if the brokers and investors don't even take me seriously? Or, how do I deal with issues? I have a secret for you. You don't really need to know everything about everything to get first started in real estate investing or any business for that matter. What you really need to do first and foremost, you need to be committed to that business or the idea of what you want to do. That's number one. And then you really need to surround yourself with people that have already been successful at doing what you want to do so that you can model them. It's like what they've done for you is like, it's a blueprint layout for what you should be doing. So focus on the who and not the how. So at the beginning of the year in 2021, I read this book called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan, and it really shifted my mindset on the ability for myself to even do bigger things. It's like a formula to achieve like bigger goals. And, usually when we want to do something, we've been trained to ask ourselves, like, how can I do this? Well, there's a better question to ask, one that really kind of unlocks a lot of ease and accomplishment. And like that this book taught me that we should ask instead, who can do this for me? So it's really like a paradigm shift, and it sounds so simple, but it goes to show you that, there's people out there that can help you achieve everything that you want in both your business life and your personal life. It's really teamwork. So I've even revamped my real estate sales business after reading that book now, as I have, staff. I have 2 virtual assistants, and it really, grown my business, and it's freed up more of my time. And then the funny thing is I'm more productive. I'm able to even do more, such as this podcast. And real estate in general, like I've said many times before, is a team sport. And so, you have a team, make it a team, find a mentor, assistant, business partner, CPA, brokers, etc. You won't be able to do it alone. So that transitions me to my guest today. So my guest today is Kyle Mitchell. He knows all about this commitment I'm talking about, and also the team aspect of real estate. He switched careers from being in corporate world to going full-time in real estate. And it'll be interesting to hear his story. A little bit more about Kyle is that he's a real estate entrepreneur and the best-selling author of Best in Class. And Kyle focuses on multifamily syndication and currently has 55 million assets under management. And he's the managing partner and co-founder of Limitless Estates, and the Asset Management Summit, where their mission is to positively impact the lives of their investors and the communities in which they invest through the highest level of transparency and fiduciary responsibility. He's also the host of a weekly podcast called Passive Income Through Multifamily Real Estate, where he speaks with various experts in the real estate industry to help educate and create clarity for passive investors and new operators. So that being said, let's just jump right into this. Kyle, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Dale. How are you?
I'm good. I know the next week's Christmas, so happy holidays to you. Any good plans for Christmas?
So I live in Arizona now, which is where we do most of our investing. We moved here in April, and most of our family's in Southern California. So any holiday or basically once a month, we go back to California to see our family. So I'll be doing that for the holidays.
Very cool. So for my audience that doesn't know you, tell me a little bit more about yourself, perhaps the things that the bio doesn't even cover.
Yeah, born and raised in Southern California. And originally I grew up playing golf. And I was an avid golfer, and I hopped into my first job during high school as a summer job with the golf industry. And I basically worked in the golf industry for 20, Yeah, 22 years before I got into real estate. There was a small stint there where I played golf professionally, and I was just fully engulfed in the golf world and then the corporate world on the management side. So what I did there was I was basically property management for golf courses, and that's where I learned a lot of my management and operations background that I now utilize in the apartment industry.
Okay, got it. So how did you, did the idea of real estate investing, how did that, find you? Were you reading books, or did you meet somebody that, put the bug in your ear to even consider that? How did that work out?
Yeah, I found real estate investing back in 2010. I started investing in some single family homes, and it was really through podcasts and the purple book that everyone knows from Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and then actually Cash Flow Quadrant, which is one of my favorite books from him. I actually like that one more than Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But as soon as I read that book, I completely changed my mindset. I actually had my own primary residence. I sold that. And I utilized that money to start investing in real estate because I realized that I had purchased a liability in my primary residence, and I wanted to purchase assets. And so that's kind of where the mindset shift started changing. So I started buying up single family homes. I got to about 10, and I quickly realized that it was tough to scale. I wanted the point where that could replace my income and I could be a full-time investor. And I realized I'd have to get to 100, 200 of these homes. And so I kind of stopped in 2013, 14 for a couple of years, was focused on my career. I got burnt out in the golf business and started looking for something else. And that's when I stumbled upon an online course, actually just randomly on Google, for multifamily. And there was a huge mindset shift for me during that time because I didn't think that I was someone that could buy apartments, right? A lot of people don't think that they can buy apartments. They think it's for the rich, and it's a certain person that buys it. But in general, people who buy apartments are just people like me and people who want to invest. And we do what's called multifamily syndication, where we pool money so we can buy these larger apartment buildings. And so as soon as I found that, I fell in love with the business model because a lot of what I did in the golf business was managing P&Ls, budgets, CapEx plans, managing people, hiring people. And a lot of that carries over into the apartment business. And so 11 months after I found that, I left my full-time job to pursue this full-time.
Okay, got it. So it looks like you're already planning like your exit strategy out of corporate after you kind of were doing the math, right, on the single family types of rentals, and it was just harder to scale up, and you just wanted something that you knew would be a better business plan for you to be able to execute that a lot faster. Out of curiosity, like, is it mainly only multifamily that you are investing in, or is that your main asset class, or are you doing anything else out of curiosity?
Yeah, we are doing one other project. It is still multifamily, but it's an office conversion to multifamily. But our main bread and butter is multifamily. We've looked into different asset classes like self-storage, mobile home parks, and those are great investments, but we're trying to stay hyper-focused. It's very easy to lose focus and, kind of have that squirrel syndrome or shiny object syndrome. And we're focused and we're heavily invested in the multifamily asset class, and we really believe in it in the long term.
Okay, I got it. So basically, I know that your wife Lolita and you, it's like you guys are basically doing this together as well. And so she is like, can I ask you, was she always in alignment with you when you got into this, or did you guys do this jointly together and decide that this is the path that you guys wanted to go, to build your wealth?
Yeah. So actually rewinding a little bit further back. So this was at the time where she was just my girlfriend and we were just dating, and I was looking for a way out of my job. And so we had these weekly mastermind meetings with friends. We called them Moonshot Mondays, where we just get together, and she was involved, and we would talk about different business ideas. And so at that point, we weren't even talking about real estate. And then I stumbled upon that course. But yes, she was there the whole way with me. We took the online course together. We started our meetup together. We started our podcast together, and then she supported our family while I left my job to pursue this full time. So I'm more involved in the business. She still helps with the podcast and with raising some capital for the company. So yes, we were kind of hand in hand, and the vision started and the alignment started even from the beginning on what we wanted to do with our future.
Okay. So what was that progression like? I think you said, you had like an accelerated process within 10 months and whatnot, and you were able to kind of quit your corporate job when you got into multifamily. So And the multifamily deal, the first deal that you did, was it something that you took down yourself? Was it already syndication? I kind of just want to learn more about that.
Yeah, so I had not done a deal before I left my full-time job. We didn't get our first deal until after, but it was a syndication. It was a 42-unit property, and I had two other partners on the deal. And that was a deal that we probably could have done as a joint venture because it was a smaller deal, but I knew I wanted to be in the syndication business. And so I wanted to have that property be kind of my test for syndication start to finish. Doing a joint venture, you can still learn a lot, but I wanted to understand what the syndication process was A to Z so that I could obviously build up my knowledge and be prepared for the next one as we grew and scaled.
Okay. Did you have the property first or did you have the investors first then? Like what came first?
Yep. Chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah.
The investors. And we had been building up our investor database and list for 18 months before we started raising for that deal. Now, is that the perfect way to do it? I mean, 18 months is a lot of time. So we were trying to find our first deal, but at the same time, in tandem, we were getting investors, right? They say that if you find the deal, the investors will come or the money will come. I don't fully believe that's true. Now, if you have a track record and you have experience, then yes, that is somewhat true. But if you're just getting started and you find a deal, it does not mean the money will come. There's a trust factor there when you're raising capital from other people, right? And you're a fiduciary to those investors. So you have a lot of responsibility there. And typically investors want to see some type of experience and track record to know that their money is being protected. So we started a meetup, like I mentioned, then a podcast, and people saw our progression and the level of seriousness that we took our business to. And so we attracted a following, and that's how we got a lot of our investors for our first deal. But we were building that list for 12 to 18 months before we got our first deal.
Okay, got it. So that's how you do it. You kept everybody engaged with these different channels, right? Meetups, they got to see you in person, build they know, like, and trust you and whatnot. You're a real person. And like the podcast kept everybody engaged and whatnot too. And it's like, I mean, side note, I've been listening to your podcast too. And it's just like, you've done a great job. It's actually, it's like it's also inspiration for me to even do my own podcast as I was a guest on yours. This is just as another side note, but what what I want to say is like, how did you just kind of, is there anything else that you kind of kept everybody engaged with? Because they all became your audience, but it did take a while for them, for you to get your first deal or whatnot. Was it very easy for them to be interested in, that even your very first offering, since you're brand new, or how did that work?
Yeah, we had a lot of different channels to keep everyone engaged. So we have a monthly newsletter that goes out on the first of the month. And then we had a drip campaign that went out once a month as well to educate them on the markets that we were looking in and investing in real estate in general. And then also we repurposed the content from the podcast and put it on a YouTube channel. So we had a lot of things going on. I would do a quarterly blog as well. I would say some of the investors were interested, but not all. Definitely. I think we had a lot of people that said, hey, we like what you're doing, Kyle and Lolita. You're doing a great job. However, we kind of want to see how the first one goes, and then we'll get into the second one. Right. And then some people said, hey, I want to see how your first couple go, and then we'll get into the third one. So it is a natural progression. And that's why we started out smaller. We didn't start out with a $10 million deal. The first deal we did was 1.7 million. We raised about $1 million. And we barely got there. That was a struggle in and of itself, but we were able to get there because we built the list to a sizable amount. We felt like we could raise about 2 million, and it ended up being about 1 million.
How did the experience of that first deal go? I mean, did you even, were you able to even hit the projected even returns, or like lessons learned from that overall experience? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so we did hit the returns. We actually sold it already. We sold it in 23 months. It ended up being a great investment for our investors and for us. It was a great experience. It's still kind of sad. I was emotionally attached to that property. I actually just drove by it the other day. But it was a fantastic investment. And really on that investment, what I learned was more on the front end, and, having the right mortgage broker, having the right lender that you have a strong relationship with. Unfortunately, that mortgage broker, and I'm not going to name them here, but they were trying to take advantage of the fact that I was a first-time buyer. And there were a lot of things that weren't disclosed, where added fees got added on the back end that weren't disclosed. And so we ended up moving away from that broker 29 days before close, and we actually closed at the wire. So that was a lesson learned. And then setting up your team in advance. We were originally going to try and do this with just ourselves, signing on the loan and doing it ourselves. And we had to bring on partners because it just wasn't working out. And so setting up your team in advance is huge so that you don't create any bottlenecks during the close. In multifamily syndication or in real estate in general, once you're under contract, there's so many things going on at once where if you have any type of bottlenecks, it can really slow down the close. In syndication, you're getting your PPM documents ready, you're getting your investment summary ready, you're raising capital from investors, you're setting up bank accounts, doing due diligence. All this happens in about a 3 or 4 week period. So if you're not prepared in advance, there's a large chance that you're not going to close on time.
Well, that is a huge lesson learned. I'm glad that you were able to kind of just figure out, that something wasn't right with the original mortgage broker that you're working with, and just, move on from there and still close a deal. Being new, it's tough. You put yourself out there, but it's just like another avenue thing I wanted to talk about is like, sometimes it's being new, it's even hard to get people to take you seriously, right? Especially when you're working with even commercial brokers. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure. I was assuming that you source your initial deal probably through a broker. If that was the case, how did you even get that person to take you seriously, being it was your first deal?
Yep, that was definitely difficult, and it just takes persistence and consistency. My wife and I were driving to Tucson, Arizona, which is where our first deal was. We would leave at 2 a.m. on our only day off during the week because we still had our corporate jobs while we were looking for deals. And we would get there around 9 a.m. We'd tour properties, meet with brokers and property management companies all day long, and then drive back, get home at 1 a.m. the next day. On one of those drives, this was after I left my job, a broker called me and said, "Hey, Kyle, I know you're going to be out here today. Do you want to see a deal that I just got? You'd be the first investor." So it was right place, right time, but it was also putting in the effort that no one else is doing, right? You want to be doing things that other people are not doing. So that showed the broker that we were serious. Who else wakes up at 2 a.m. to drive 8 hours to Tucson? Not many people. So that was one thing. And then just proof of concept, or we created our platform, right? So we have a website, we have a blog, we have a podcast, YouTube channel. So when people look us up online, they see that we're serious. We have a real business. It's not a Gmail account and that's all there is, so there's some proof of concept or credibility that plays a part in that as well. And most of it is just over time, people seeing the consistency, seeing our growth, and certain things just take time. And that's one of them.
Okay, got it. And so for your next deals, how are you finding deals now? Is it still through the broker network? Are you doing any other special way, of getting deals? Is there a secret?
No, there's no real secret on our end. We're really big on broker relationships, and that's what it is. And so that's why earlier this year we decided to move to Arizona so we can continue to build those strong relationships. I guess the only other secret is being able to move quickly, right? So the fact that I'm now boots on the ground, a broker can call me right now. I could go see the property in 30 minutes. We can have it underwritten before the end of the day, and we can have an answer back to the broker that day. Whereas when I lived in California, it was, "Hey, I'll be out next week." And by that time, it's too late. And so that's definitely separated us from our competition. But now that we've been able to close 6 or 7 deals, we are now getting more of a reputation for being a closer in the industry. And in this market, we're getting a lot more attention from the brokers. We're getting a lot more calls for off-market deals. And so there's more deal flow coming across our desk, which is a great thing. But that took 3 years to build up to that point. It didn't happen overnight.
In terms of geographic location for where you're buying your properties, is it mainly, is it mainly close to where you're at, or tell me more where your properties are, where you're mainly buying all of your multifamily?
Yeah, most of our focus, 95%, is in Phoenix and Tucson. We do have one property in Arlington, Texas, and we have boots on the ground out there that manages those. And so we will add some properties to Texas, but mainly focused in Arizona, which is why I moved here. And so we're heavily focused here. I think it's very important to focus on the market that you invest in, right? So we're not the group that invests in 5 or 6 markets across the United States. We really want to know the market. We want to have strong relationships in the market. We want to have boots on the ground. And so when you have 5 or 6 markets, I do think it's more difficult to fully understand everything going on in that market. So being here, living here, I'm actually seeing the market move, in real time. So I think that's extremely important. So we mainly focus in Phoenix and Tucson.
Okay, for Phoenix and Tucson, why those markets? What metrics were you looking at and made it, appealing for you?
Yeah. So when I first got started, actually, we were looking in Ohio. And what I found difficult while I had my full-time job was getting to that market. First of all, it's 3 hours ahead of us. And so when I got off work, calling people at even 3 or 4, most people are already off work. So I couldn't get a hold of them. Traveling would take several days. And so I wanted to find a market that was a little bit closer. So we changed to Arizona. So that was one of the reasons, is proximity. It's not the only reason, but we look for pro-business markets, pro-landlord markets, and ones that have a 5, 10, 15-year plan and building out infrastructure. And that's what we like out here, especially in Phoenix. They're building out freeways, building out infrastructure. They're very pro-business. And so you see in that migration, 220 people are moving here every day. And there's not enough housing. So it's simply supply and demand. And the fact that we're bringing in businesses, wage growth is keeping up with rent growth. And so all those factors, I really believe in the Arizona market long-term for the next 10, 15 years. Real estate's very local, hyper local. And so what happens in Arizona is different that's going to happen in Texas than Florida. And no market is prone or, recession proof, but there's definitely some recession resistant markets out there. And I think Arizona is certainly one of them.
Okay, I got it. And just to get an idea of like where you're at now, the types of properties that you're looking at. I know your first, multifamily was a 42 unit. Like what kind of properties now are you targeting for even your next acquisitions?
Yeah, 100 plus units. We typically do class B and C, although we're leaning more towards class B products, so a little bit newer. I would say class C is more 1970s, early 1980s. We're trying to get into the later 80s. There's not a lot of 90s product in Arizona that was built. So there is some, but anywhere between late 80s and early 2000s is what we're targeting now in great locations. We are certainly not at the bottom of the market. I can't tell you if we're at the top of the market, but we're not at the bottom. And so at this part of the cycle, we want to make sure we're investing in location.
Okay, I got it. And I wanted to transition and even ask you, because I didn't even know that you had a book until I read your bio recently. So your book, Best in Class, so tell me about that. When did it get published and what's it about?
Yeah, so that got published earlier this year in July. And that was a book I wrote with Gary Lipsky, and we both have a background in management and operations. And there's a gap in the market where people are being taught how to buy apartment buildings, but not how to manage them on the front end. The sexy part of real estate is buying 10, 20, 30, $40 million properties, raising millions of dollars of capital. But what do you do with it after you close on a building? And that's essentially the most important part. Once it's closed, you need to execute on your business plan. So there's not a lot of education out there as far as what to do, the systems to put in place, how to manage people, how to manage your business plan. And that was my background in the golf industry. I did it for 16 years. I was in management, building budgets, managing capital improvement projects, hiring and firing people, managing people. And that's essentially what it is once you close on a property, and holding your property management company accountable. I think a lot of people think that once you buy a property, you just hand it off to your property management company and that's it. And they take care of everything. But if you're not keeping an eye on that, then you're losing money on the bottom line. There's no doubt about it. The last 10, 15 years, the market's been so hot that you can get away with those things. But as the market changes, it's going to heavily rely on the fact of on the management side and the systems that you have in place to execute your business plan quickly. And so that's what that book is about. You can flip to any chapter. And if you're going through due diligence, you can read about that. If you're going through disposition, you can read about that. Managing the manager, KPIs, all that good stuff on how to manage a property. It's definitely not the sexy side of things, but it can definitely drive millions of dollars to your bottom line and your investors' bottom line.
Okay, got it. So like how, how has the book been really, has it done anything even for your business now? It's just like, no, it's just great. Now I know, now it's like next time I see you, I want to get your book. I want you to have it autographed for me.
I do get that from time to time, which is still something that is foreign to me. It's really a cool thing when people read it and say, hey, this is added value. And that was the point, right? We wanted to just make sure we were adding as much value to people in the industry. I love this industry, and it's because it's a small industry, it's a small world for sure. And everyone helps everyone out in this industry, and I absolutely love it. And I want to be a part of that.
Okay. So, I mean, I know your main focus is multifamily. So like for me personally, like I do a little bit of multifamily, but I do, mobile home parks, self-storage and other things. So I differentiate in asset classes. How do you think of diversification? I mean, the fact that you invest in multifamily, how do I diversify just, by staying in the same asset class of multifamily, or like, how do you put thought into that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, and I said it earlier, real estate's very hyper local, right? Which is why we introduced Texas, because we wanted to give some diversification to our investors. Right now, Phoenix and Tucson are high growth markets, maybe a little bit less cash flow. Dallas is a more stabilized market with higher cash flow, less appreciation. So we do diversify in that sense. And then Phoenix and Tucson are certainly two different markets as well. And then we have the difference between Class B and C assets. Some are more risky with more upside, but definitely diversifying between markets is what we do.
Okay. Going back to just your growth in multifamily, I mean, what do you think, what's contributed to your, rapid growth? I mean, and just, you haven't been doing it for that long. I mean, but how did you even figure out how to do everything? I mean, from A to Z and to where you're at right now? Is it like, who helped you along the way? Did you have a lot of mentorship?
Yeah, so you hit it earlier, is modeling after others, right? I'm a big Tony Robbins guy, and he always talks about modeling after others, not recreating the wheel. So I certainly did that. And surrounding yourself with people who are already doing what you want to be doing has been really important, is just surrounding myself with the right people. But I completely just dove right in. So even while I was still working my full-time job, I would drive about an hour and a half a day. Or I'm sorry, each way to my job. And during that time, I would listen to podcasts and books solely to do with multifamily syndication. And so I listened to podcasts on 2x speed. And so I was literally listening to, 3 hours to 6 hours of podcasts a day, driving back and forth to work 6 days a week. And then after work, I would go to meetups and meet people. And so I would just fully throw myself into it so I can be an expert in something as soon as possible. I was trying to get to my 10,000 hours as much as I could. So even the friends that we hang out with, the people that we hang out with now are in this industry. It was really changing who we were as our lives and as people. So that's how I learned about it. But really, the key to this business is surrounding yourself with the right people. The more you can do that, the faster you'll grow.
No, that's amazing. It's like you really molded your mindset. It's like you're basically an entrepreneur now. A lot of times when you hang out with a lot of other entrepreneurs that think big, you think big like them. It's just like a a side effect of what happens. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to basically ask you, Ness. It's like, so any other big goals that you're planning on, just that you're excited about in your business?
Yeah, the next 12 months, and actually you mentioned Who Not How. That's one of my favorite. That is my favorite book of 2021.
It's mine too.
Yeah, and now I'm reading his new one. It's The Gap and the Gain. I think that's the name of it. You should read that. It's a fantastic book. But I'm a part of Strategic Coach. I really love that. And so now I'm trying to find my who's for 2022. So we want to hire a fractional CFO. We just hired an asset manager. We're going to hire a COO and what else? A couple of acquisitions managers as well. So really finding the who's to be able to help drive the business so I can work more on the business as a visionary and not as much in the business, which is what I've been doing the last 3 years. Yep. So that's my number one focus.
Speaking of like team and just who you consider part of your team right now, that's crucial to getting to running your business. Who is part of your team right now? I'm just trying to figure out like what that entails.
Yeah, so I have an executive assistant who plays a crucial role in managing my calendar, my schedule, and doing a lot of the stuff that I'm not good at and don't want to be doing, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We have an asset manager that helps manage each asset on the day-to-day business and the execution of the business plan. We've got we outsource a lot of our stuff right now. Like I have an accounting team that does all the accounting on everything. And then, like I said, we want to hire a fractional CFO and a COO to kind of manage the business as well. And then we have 2 or 3 virtual assistants that do things like presentations and decks and managing emails and social media.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, going back to kind of your mindset when you made the transition over to, to be full-time real estate investor, entrepreneur and whatnot, did you ever have negative self-talk? I mean, was that still going through your head? I mean, it's like, and how did you manage that?
Yeah. I mean, I still have it from time to time, right? Being an entrepreneur and being in this business, it is up and down, even sometimes multiple times a day, depending on what's going on. And so it's just one thing that I do is every morning I read my 1-year goals, my current year goals, and my 5-year goals. And that helps me keep aligned and stay focused, but it also allows me to see how much progress I've made, right? And when you can look, that's what that book Gap in the Gain is about. I think a lot of people are in the gap thinking about where they want to go and comparing themselves to other people, but it's also important to look at the gain. How far have you come over the last 12, 18, 24 months? And when you do that, you realize, holy cow, we really have been successful over the last 12 to 24 months. And you come from a place of gratitude. And I'm definitely grateful for the strides that we've made, and it helps motivate me for moving forward. So that's kind of some things that I do.
Okay, I got it. Do you still run a meetup? Out of curiosity, you still run a meetup group too?
No, not since. So we moved to Arizona. So the one in California, obviously, I can't do anymore. And with COVID, it really put a damper on things. I really liked getting in front of people and meeting them face to face. We did do it for a while virtually. My partners still run a meetup in Southern California, and they do it both virtually and in person. And so they've kind of taken over that piece of it. I would love to get more involved in that in the Arizona market. So it's something that I'm thinking about, but haven't quite pulled the trigger on yet.
Okay. When you started the meetup group before in SoCal, like, was that hard to do, or like, were you all gung ho about that?
So I'm a natural introvert, right? I've never liked speaking in front of people, and that's definitely changed over the last 3 years. I've had to just get out of my comfort zone, but I am a natural introvert. I don't like speaking in front of people, but I do it now. And so my wife helped me with that, and we started a meetup. But at first it was 15 people, and 10 of them were people we forced to be there because we didn't want the room to be empty. They're just friends and family. And then over time, as we produced good content and really put time and energy and effort into it, we were getting 40, 50 people at each event, which is fantastic, but it takes time to build up, and you need to do it intentionally. If you're not doing it intentionally, if you're not adding value to people, then it's not going to take off as much as you would like. So it's really focusing on how can you add value to the people that are going to attend, and then it naturally grows via word of mouth.
Okay. I know initially you started in the real estate investing space, initially with doing single family home rentals. Knowing what you know now, would you have started the same way?
No, I would have just hopped straight into multifamily, to be honest with you. Now, I was buying turnkey single family home rentals, and the problem with turnkey is that there's a middleman making a commission, which essentially reduces the amount of equity you start in on day one. And so if I was doing single family homes, I would have probably gone the BRRRR strategy, where I was buying them and rehabbing them myself versus buying it from the person that was doing that. So I'm a believer that you can make money in any asset class, in any market, in any industry. You just have to know the game that you're playing. And so I do love multifamily. And for me, with my background in management, I certainly gravitate more towards that than single family homes. So I would have definitely just hopped straight into multifamily.
Okay, got it. I mean, how important is networking even still to you right now? Are you still doing a ton of that, and where are you doing it at?
Yeah, it's key, and it's something that with COVID, everyone I think got away from a little bit. It's easy to hop on Zoom and do networking, which is good, but there's nothing that is better than shaking someone's hand and meeting them in person. And so just going to events, around the country, going to other people's meetups, meeting with brokers. We have our own platform as well, where we have events that we invite people to in Arizona, and try and get people to come invest in this market and teach people about the market and things like that. But anytime you can network, even if it's not even in the industry, right? We're golfers, so if you can network with people at the country clubs or whatever it is, that kind of stuff goes a long ways.
In terms of like favorite real estate strategy, like what is your favorite real estate strategy that you employ even in your own stuff?
Yep, it's just value add, right? It's adding value to the properties. And so we buy under or mismanaged or undervalued properties and add value to them by fixing deferred maintenance, putting money back into the property, and forcing appreciation, which is why I love multifamily. The stronger your bottom line in multifamily, the more it's worth, right? And there's a lot of things you can do to control that. In single family homes, typically they use the comparison approach. My house is going to be worth the same as the one next door based on the comps if it's the same size. But if I have identical multifamily properties sitting next to one another, if my bottom line is stronger, my property's worth more. And so I love the control of that, and the fact that you can implement certain strategies to drive your bottom line and increase the value. And so there's some risk adjusted returns there where you can force appreciation, increase the value even in a downturn.
Okay, makes sense. I mean, for folks that are newer to, investing in a multifamily syndication and whatnot, like, how do you help somebody, through that process of feeling comfortable with it? Like, is it like you go through like an education type of funnel if you're dealing with a newer investor that's contemplating doing, pulling a trigger on multifamily syndication?
Yep, absolutely. And we're very serious about making sure that you don't invest in any of our opportunities until you're ready, right? We want to make sure it's a win-win and that you feel comfortable. And so, yes, there is some education there. That's why we started the podcast. And depending on how you like to learn, you can go on the YouTube channel as well, read our blogs. We have a passive investors guide that helps educate you to know the things you need to know before you get in your first syndication. We're happy to have calls with you. And then we have what we call a drip campaign, but monthly emails that go out that educate people on the process of syndication and why syndication. But yeah, there is a learning curve for sure. Investing in apartments and real estate is becoming more mainstream, but it's not quite there yet. But it has gotten a lot of attention, which is great over the last 3 or 4 years or 5 years, but it's still a little bit new to some people. So there's definitely that learning curve that you have to go through.
Yep. I mean, for those folks that, are, folks that are aspiring, multifamily investors that want to do it actively, I mean, do you have what kind of advice do you even have for that? To do what you do?
Yeah. Surround yourself with other people that are already doing it, for sure. If you're going to be a multifamily syndicator, you've got to, in my opinion, take it very seriously and be intentional about what you do. We raise capital from private investors, right? So you're in charge of other people's money. And so if you don't know what you're doing, if you're not fully educated, then you need to have a team around you that is, or you're just not being a fiduciary to your investors' money, right? So you have a ton more of responsibility versus just investing your own capital. Obviously, you don't want to lose your own money, but when it comes to other people's money, you have to understand what you're doing. So get the knowledge, surround yourself with other people that are doing it, are the key factors in there. And this is a team sport. I'm not the one that's doing everything. We have partners that are stronger in other areas that focus on those things, and I focus on the things that I'm strong at. And it's definitely a team sport, which makes this industry so fun.
Yeah. For the investors that you are trying to, that you're looking for, are you only looking for accredited investors, or do you have flexibility there?
Yeah, at this time we do what's called a 506C, and it is for accredited investors only. We have in the past done 506Bs, but we've gotten away from that on our last 4 deals.
Okay, very cool. I mean, I have some final questions for you. It's like, so, I guess anything that you're extremely excited about with what's going on in your business right now?
Yeah, the thing that I'm most excited about is that we're in the hiring phase and the growth phase, right? So we are finally breaking through with a lot of the brokers where we're seeing a lot more deal flow, and we are now in the mindset of growing and hiring people and hiring that C-suite of executives. And so I'm excited to see where our team is in 12 months to see how much we're built out, but I'm finally being able to work on the business versus in the business. And that's, like I mentioned before, my main goal for the next 12 months.
Yeah. I mean, did you see yourself doing this? Did you ever see yourself doing, what you're doing right now, even like, 7 years ago, 5, 7 years ago?
No, if you would have told me I was doing even half the things I'm doing now, I'd be shocked. Just even being on a podcast or running my own podcast or speaking in front of people and educating, which I absolutely love now. But I would have said you were crazy. And then buying, we just closed yesterday on a $27 million apartment building, which, that's crazy to think of if this was 7 years ago. And now that's something that we're actively pursuing on a daily basis. So it's exciting and very grateful for, the last 3 years.
No, it sounds really exciting. I'm excited for you. Curious. I like to ask this for my guests now. It's like, so, and you could answer it any way you like. So what does success mean to you?
Yeah, if you would ask me this 2 years ago, it would have been completely different. But success to me is really living a lifestyle by design. It's very easy when you're starting your own business and becoming an entrepreneur to actually create your own rat race, right? A lot of people leave the rat race of the W-2 job to create their own financial freedom and then create their own rat race themselves. And I've been in that a little bit over the last 2 years. And so for me, it just means being able to be in control of my time and spend time with my family and really focus on that and have a lifestyle by design.
Yeah. What is your unique skill set? What is your superpower that's contributed to everything that you got going on right now, to your current success?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. Right now, I'm just joined strategic coach with Dan Sullivan, and we're going through the process of finding out what my unique ability is. And I don't quite have that yet. So I can't share what that will be, but I'm excited to find that out. One of my biggest strengths is just consistency. I'm very consistent, and I think you can beat out 95% of your competition by just being consistent. A lot of people can't do things for long periods of time. They do it for a couple of months and then peter off. I've been fortunate enough to be able to just be consistent month in, month out on what I do and really focus on my goals and just keep driving ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I could just tell like I think I said in the intro, it's like one of the things you need to do when you just jump into a business venture is, number one, be committed. And then you're consistent with that commitment, and it shows that you show up every day and you do what you got to do to make stuff happen. And that's why, you are where you are right now. Like when you first started and you made that commitment, did you ever think that it would not work out, or was that just not an option?
I did, there's always that doubt that creeps in. The one thing that allowed me to be comfortable with leaving my full-time job and my, 6-figure salary was I did a fear setting exercise that Tim Ferriss teaches. And I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan. And I think this exercise is in his 4-hour work week book, but you can basically go through an exercise. It's very simple. What's the worst thing that can happen if I left my job? And what's the absolute worst thing? And if that happened, what's the absolute worst thing? And I came to the realization that the absolute worst thing that happened if I failed is that I would have maybe a few $100,000 less in the bank, but I would have to go get another job in the golf industry. So I would be exactly where I was at that day is my worst case scenario. And when I realized that, there's zero reason for me not to take the jump. And so that really helped my mindset change. Now, in the course of the last 3 years, has there been doubt, up and down? Yeah, like I mentioned, every day is an up and down in this industry. But you've just got to know that is the life that you've chosen. And that's that's what being an entrepreneur and a business owner is.
Yeah, absolutely. We're pretty much wrapping this up. Is there anything else that you would like to, tell the audience or, say to them?
Yeah, no, I just feel free to reach out. I'm always willing to help out and add value to anyone that wants to learn what we're doing, what we're investing in, or just how to get started in this industry. I'm happy to help any way I can.
Okay. And so how can somebody get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to our website, limitless-estates.com, sign up for our newsletter, and we have a free passive investors guide that we give out that teaches you how to get started in multifamily syndication.
Thank you very much. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks, Kyle, for joining me on this episode. It's really exciting to hear, about your growth, and then how you got in this space, and then how you're progressing and how you really scaled it up. And so, thank you. It's very inspiring. You're very relatable, and it was very informative. And so to my listeners, feel free to reach out to Kyle directly if you have any questions for him, or if you want to network or connect with him. And also, thanks for checking out this episode of the School of Cashflow. And remember to leave a podcast review on iTunes, as it helps me attract other great guests just like Kyle. So until next time, live life abundantly.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the School of Cashflow. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into all the tips and tricks you can use to help you on your passive investing journey. In the meantime, you may visit www.cashflowschoolpodcast.com for more great episodes. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share. That's all for this episode, folks. See you next time.